Welcome back, csc230 to EX5 Part 3, and we're going to start focusing on our buttons a little bit more and our navigation at the top of the page right now. And actually, let's look at it one more time. This is what we're going to focus on right now. These navigation, they're not really buttons, just navigation links up in an area we have called Nav Bar, which is inside of our header class. We're going to do that right now. So we're going to go back to our Cloud 9, and we're going to take a look at what we have there. Now remember, this is all inside of header, and we do have a class called company name where just the company name's there, and eventually it could be a logo. But we have our nav bar where we basically have an unordered list, 4 list items, and they have kind of dummy links right now just with pound signs, so they're not really going anywhere, but they are links, and you can see their reference, so that's why they're showing up in blue right now. So we're going to make them white, so we have to kind of reassign the link element colors. So we're going to do that within Nav Bar. So we're going to start building a Nav Bar a little bit. So we're going to go back up in our CSS, and we're going to go to our header section. Under company name, we'll put in just Nav Bar first. And I'll put in Nav Bar, and remember that's a class. So we'll put that in there. And then for that class, what we'll do is, even though there's an unordered list in there, we'll see if we could apply this property of list style. There's a property called list style. And here's list style, and we're going to put none. And that should take away the buttons or the bullets from the bullet list. Now that's because there is an unordered list inside there. And let's see if that will affect it. And it did. It took away the bullets, so we didn't have to specify the unordered list. We specified nav bar, the parent, and that took away the bullets, so that's good. So also what we're going to do is we're going to specify, I think that's all I'm going to do with that right now. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to do nav bar, and then the link, and when I do the link, it's going to be an A element. And usually when I do this, I also do the nav bar, and I also do the visited, because I usually don't like a visited color, so I'll put that in there too. So this means for both of these, and that means it'll kind of wipe out the visited color. It means the visited color will be the same as whatever the regular color is, which will be white, and we'll use white right now. So I'll use color, and I'll use FFF, and I'll do that. And then after I do this, I'm also going to highlight this again, and right below this, I'll see how this works. I'll also do a, oh, and also we want to take away the underline, so we want to do text decoration, none, and make sure we don't have underlines. And once we do that, it won't go into here. This is going to be Nav Bar Hover. We're going to put a hover in here, and we're just going to put it like an orange color. We'll just use generic orange because we kind of use that for another one until we change it to something else. And we'll see how that looks so far. So we have Nav Bar. We have our Nav Bar links. Oh, I did this wrong. All right, that's okay. That's okay if I did this wrong. It's not Nav Bar A. I was screwing this up. And I'll leave the mistake in because you might make mistakes. It should be a link, not, it's the link, it's the a link that's inside of nav bar. It's not the name. I don't know why I did that. So let me do this again. I was just looking at that thinking, what did I do? Okay, so that, and then it would be a visited. So I messed that up. That's my fault. So ignore what I first did, visited, and make sure you spell it right, visit, and it wouldn't be nav bar hover. It would be nav bar a hover. So that makes sense. So it's the A element or the anchor element inside a nav bar, the link inside a nav bar, then that should work. Now they're white and they work like that. So I kind of messed that up, but that's okay. I'm not just doing this out of my head as I go, and you know, you'll have the same issues as you do it. So that looks okay right now. Now we want to put this on a line. So what we want to do is we want to put these line items in line, but because we may want to actually give them a certain width, we're going to do something called Inline Block, and we could look through our CSS for W3 schools to see more about doing that. But for now, let me just do that. Let me just go back in here. I'll do it right after nav bar before I get into the links, and I'll just put in my LIs in here. Now there's only one LI on the page, but you know what? Since it's the ones inside a nav bar, I could still kind of target those inside. It still doesn't hurt to target the LI inside of nav bar, just in case I have other line items, other menus throughout that targets this specific one. And then what I just want to do is just do display, and I'm going to do inline. Now, it suggested to do inline block. Let me just leave it inline for now, just so we could see the difference. I'll leave it inline right now, but I think that will affect the ability to put padding after it and all the different things that we do to a physical kind of area, like a block area. But I'll put that in right now and see what happens. Probably puts them on a line like that, and then we can kind of spread them out. We might spread apart each one. We we could do it here. We could even do it with the link over here. And sometimes it's good to do it with the link. Well, let's just do it here. Let's just put padding right and just see how that works. And I'll just do like a 12 pixels right now, because that should work. That should kind of spread them out. Now we want these up here. We're going to put these up here right now, the whole thing. So let's see if we go into Nav Bar, and if we say Nav Bar, and I'm going to do float right, and we'll see what happens with that. If we just say float right, we'll see what happens with Nav Bar. That might not do anything, but there it is. It actually floated to the right. Now, one thing I just want to check here, if I inspect, I'll just go to my inspect thing here, and and you can see company name goes all the way across, so it's not allowing space for this. So I actually might want to float this to the left so they could kind of go side by side, because remember, this is a block element. This company name class, it's a paragraph, it's a block element, and unless you give it a different width, it's not going to let anything get side by side with it. So let me do that right now. So let me close this up. And what I could do with company name, I could even give it a width. And I might even give it a width like maybe a percentage, give it like 40% or something. And just see if that does anything. And it doesn't allow anything to get up there, even if I inspect it. If I go up there and inspect it, and again, I'm going to click on this little arrow thing, and you can see, even though I said 40%, it's just going to there, but the whole thing that it's in is still going across. It's still block element, so it's still not letting me put anything aside of it yet. So let me go back, and let me see if I can do a float left. See if that does anything. And now that kind of looks right. That's floated left, that's floated right. It kind of, remember, float kind of takes it out of HTML flow. Now these things are kind of ahead of it. Now what we could do is we could probably put some margin above to kind of make that look a little better there, because they're kind of getting bumped up, because they're not as big as this right now, so they're getting bumped up. So let's put a little margin above, or margin top, and that will be on Nav Bar. So we'll go back here to Nav Bar, and I'll put margin top. And we might have to just experiment a little bit how much we want. I'll put 12 pixels. I've been using that for different things. We'll see how that looks. That looks okay for now. Maybe even a little more. Maybe 16. And I think that's okay. And I might even want to make the Nav Bar text a little bit bigger. It seems a little bit small. So I can go here to font size, and maybe I'll just do 1.2 M. And that looks a little better. And if we wanted it spread out a little bit more, that would be the LIs where we have this padding right. Maybe I'll do that 16. That'll only be a little bit, but that looks okay. Now let's see what happens. We'll just to kind of see what happens here. And actually, it's not that bad that it does that. That happens. It's breaking company name. We could always put a non-breaking space in there if we wanted to put something in there, but that doesn't look too bad as far as what we're doing. So that's not too bad. So that area looks okay for now. So I think we'll kind of let that go for now and kind of move on. We don't have everything done there, but we'll move on to the Jumbotron area. And all I wanted to do with the Jumbotron is the button area. Now we do have a link in here too, because remember, we have an A link in there that says like more or something like that. We have this thing that says see more. So what we'll do with that, if we kind of move down to the Jumbotron. Now is this an A element inside of Jumbotron, so I can actually target the A element in my CSS. So I'll move down to Jumbotron. And I'll do it kind of in between here. And I'll do Jumbotron A link, comma, and I'll kind of do them all like I did for the first one. I'll do that. And then open, close the curly brackets, and again, I just want the color white, or I've been doing FFF. Let's see what it looks like. That looks good. I don't need it bold or anything. I think that looks pretty good. And if I wanted to do a hover, that would just be on the link. That wouldn't be on the background, I believe. I think it would just be on the text color. Let me just see if we change the hover color. And let's change background color. Let me just highlight this whole thing and I'll replace it here. And I'll make it dark orange. And I think it's something like this. I think it actually uses, I know in JavaScript you had to use dark orange. Now let me see if I think that might work. Let's just see what happens. And that actually, I like that. That looks good. It's doing kind of a hover there. So we did a background color of the hover, that area. So that looks good. We didn't do anything with the text. So we're going to leave that for now. Won't do anything else with that. And actually, I mentioned this earlier. Let me just do this real quick. In our index, I mentioned something about a non-breaking space. And we often do that just to put spaces in because you can't put more than one regular space in. But if I went to company name here and I actually put in a non-breaking space, which is a ampersand NBSP semicolon, that's the character for that. If I put that in there and I save this, it's saying unable to save something. And if I kind of bring this over, what it should do is keep company name together, and it didn't because that's a non-breaking space, but I was getting some kind of, all right, that looks okay. Let me save that and save this and see if anything changes here. That looks okay. And let's see if our non-breaking space takes effect, and it's not keeping them together. It's not keeping our company name together. So I'm not sure why it's not doing that right now, but I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Let's move on. And what I want to move on to is actually these buttons down here. We'll make special buttons, and we'll call them main because again they're gonna vary a little bit from the generic. Might even make them a little bit smaller. We're gonna put borders on them. We're gonna put black text in them, and they're almost gonna be like kind of hollow, or not hollow, but kind of white or see-through until we hover over them. So let's try to customize that a little bit. And again, that's not the Jumbotron area, but the main columns area, main calls. So here's our buttons that are in here, and they all have a class of buttons. So they're just using the generic button or our default button, and that's this one. And again, maybe I'll even copy all this stuff, because then we could just change some stuff about it. And I'll go down into the main calls, and I'll put this in here, and I'll make a new class called button dash main. But calls, button dash main calls, just so I know they're like that. And the background color, I'll just do white as the background color. And I'm going to put a border on here. And remember, with border, you have to put the type, which is solid, and then put a space and put the thickness. I'll do 1.5 px for now. And I'll put a space. And for color, maybe I'll do the $. Let's try AAA for now and see how that looks. Now the padding, we're even going to go smaller. So let's go like 714. We'll make these a little bit smaller. And now we have to apply it. So I have to give this class to these things. So they're going to be button, and it's all going to be inside the quotes. So it's going to be btn-main-calls. And now I'll just copy this class so I don't have to do it over. And I'll copy over the whole thing. And that'll be for these three buttons. And you can see we're applying two classes to them. They get the default, and then they get the modified version. So they inherit whatever the new one has over top of it. So that doesn't look any different. So let's make sure we have it okay. Border solid, make sure we don't have any problems in here. I'm going to get rid of anything we already have, like text decoration, because we only want to override things. All right, so everything looks okay here. Looks like we got rid of everything that is being used only once. So we don't want to duplicate any of the properties here. I'm going to make sure I save it. I didn't save it before, so I have this saved. And it has the X, so that means it's saved. This is saved. Let me just go here and do a file save. Make sure these are both saved. And if I need to update it, but let me see how this looks. And that looks pretty good. That looks like what it should have. I'm not sure what was happening before. I think I just didn't have it saved. But that's what I want. I want the border. I want the fill of white. We'll change the color of this to black. We don't want it blue. And what we'll do is maybe just spread out the line height of this. That's actually in the main calls. That's the main calls paragraphs, so we could actually do in here, we could do call P, so that will hit every paragraph within a call class, and we'll just do line height, and we'll just do something like 140% and see how it looks from there. We just want to spread it out a little bit, and that looks a little better. That's kind of what we want. So I think we're in good shape here, so I think we'll take a break here. We have this pretty much looking like a website, at least it's somewhat responsive, but we're going to add some media queries. We're going to make it a little bit more responsive, and we're going to kind of finish this up, and we're going to do some things up here. So possibly we could set a little menu that kind of disappears and shows up when it gets real small like this, even though actually this way doesn't look bad at all. It doesn't look bad just going underneath, and now it seems like our non-breaking space is working too, so that actually looks okay like that. So we'll see how far we go with this, but we just have a little bit more to do, so we'll stop here with part 3 and we'll move on to part 4.